Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Got a good crew here this morning. Matt Ray, Grant Ramey, Brent Hubbs. I am Eric Kane. Plenty of your questions to get into. Appreciate you guys for sending those in. And we will start here with Smoky Man 15. What excites you about the football team heading into June? Matt Ray, I know this isn't necessarily a recruiting question, but recruiting's a big-time month in the month of June, obviously. But what excites you about the football team a couple months out of training camp?
Yeah, I think it's the competition piece, right? I mean, starting at the quarterback position, we're going to talk about that all the way to game one. But you look around, you got young guys at receiver, you've got guys pushing at running back, you've got competition along the offensive line, you've got competition in the secondary. I think for me, it's been, you know, a long time since we've kind of seen that, and that's going to be something that's exciting because you have some unknowns and what does that competition breed into this Tennessee football team? There's going to be no days off because you're going to get passed up, and I think that's something that's just overall pretty exciting is going into fall camp, knowing that there's a lot more to look at than the typical things.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, Brent, there's going to be a quarterback competition, and that's obviously going to be exciting to watch how all that unfolds. But to Matt's point, not just the quarterback competition, you going to have a lot of competition on the offensive line. Wide receivers going to have competition. There's going to be some movement there on the defensive line. I mean, there's going to be a lot of competing, and as Matt said, and I've heard you say it many times, better not take a day off because you're going to get passed if you do.
Well, I think the unknowns is what intrigues me about this football team. And it's just been a long time, Grant, since we've talked about having unknowns. We've spent the last few summers talking about putting guys in bubbles in August and don't practice them. And there's just not a lot of that going on with this football team this August. And if you can stay healthy, Grant, I think it in turn makes you a better football team because you are competing every day in the month of August. Now you got to stay healthy. That's the challenge with it. But I think I think there's an excitement level when there's new and there's unknown, and there's plenty of that with this football team going into this fall.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to see it on the field. You want to see what it looks like, and we're going to have to talk about it between now and August, and then we're going to see a little bit of it during August, and you're not going to see as much as you want to see, obviously, during fall camp. But yeah, like Matt said to start, it's going to go all the way to game one, and then it's not going to stop after game one because there's competitions across the board at all these different position groups, and they'll get to game one, see how game one goes, and then we'll start talking about game two and what changes are going to be made between game one and game two and all that stuff. It's just the unknowns, it's the questions, it's the overhauled position groups across the board, trying to figure out what this football team is going to look like and what the ceiling is, what the floor is.
Got a basketball question here next up. Where is Estrella in regards to his recovery rehab on the injured foot? Is it too optimistic to expect a total recovery?
I don't think it's too optimistic. I mean, you're talking about it happened in November. He had surgery in late November, so he's going to be a year out of it before basketball season really gets going, full speed ahead kind of. I mean, obviously, they're going to work through the summer, and they're going to be cautious and overly cautious with it, and they tried to do that a year ago, and it didn't work out well, so they're going to have to, go that same route and continue being cautious with it. But, he was out of the boot before the last basketball season was over. He's moving around a little bit. He was jumping a little bit. He's been doing a lot of work on his own, even when he was in the boot and on a scooter and all that stuff. So I don't think it's too optimistic to think total recovery is possible. I think you addressed it with surgery. You knew it was going to take a while for him to come back, but he's going to be a year removed before Tennessee gets to conference basketball games next season. So I don't think that's too optimistic.
Recruiting question here from Rowdy Y'all. How's the O-line and D-line class shaping up for 2026?
Yeah, good question. I think obviously Tennessee got Gabe Osinda back to campus this weekend. He's a guy that's stock up coming out of the spring after a big junior season there at Baylor. Has camped really well this offseason. Body looks to be in a really good spot, playing in a really healthy way. So he's got a chance to really improve his stock even more throughout the fall. That's a guy Tennessee was in on early and able to get a commitment from early. Speaking of guys they were able to get a commitment from early, Brandon Anderson, a guy that they got a commitment from early. He backed off that a few months later, back at Tennessee this past weekend for 865 Live. I think Tennessee probably has put their best foot forward there again coming out of this weekend. Now, official visits are going to be interesting for me with him. He's going to visit Missouri. He's going to visit North Carolina. He's going to be back to Tennessee last, and that's going to be an important official visit. How much further does that recruitment go past that point is going to be interesting to me. I don't think that, Tennessee's got a lot of options along the interior, so they really like Brandon Anderson, but how long do things kind of shake out there will be something worth watching. But in-state guys that Tennessee, I think, continue to move the needle with are Brody Smith and Kamari Blair. I think they did a really good job with Kamari Blair this weekend. Getting him to cancel that Kentucky official visit and replace it with Tennessee was a big deal. They're going to have Nabry Carr in the last weekend of June. He's set to make a decision shortly after. To me, that's a Tennessee-Florida battle. They'll get Brett Colajay back to campus in June. They'll get Deacon Schmidt out here in June. So the offensive line class has potential for some pretty good pieces right now heading into June. I'm sure I'm leaving a couple of guys out that will be here during that month as well. Along the defensive line, Tennessee had Tyson Bacon committed early. We talked about him a lot, about how we felt like he was underrated, how Tennessee felt like he was underrated. He backed off that pledge to Tennessee going into official visit season, just felt like he needed to go into everything with it pretty open. And he's done that. I think Tennessee's still very much in that recruitment, but it's a heavyweight battle going into the month of June for him. Zach Groves committed. He's a guy that lists as an edge, but he's 16 years old, 250 pounds. He's going to have potential to add even more weight. So he's probably going to be a hand in the dirt type guy. Tennessee will bring in a guy like J.J. Finch during June. Is currently the plan there. That's a guy that they've recruited for some time. Another battle with some Midwest schools there. And then when you kind of throw in that edge piece with guys like Hezekiah Harris, Tristan Givens, Dre Quinn, I think it's very intriguing what that defensive line room could look like moving forward. So two position groups that have a chance to come out of June going into the fall, with a really strong class, in my opinion.
We're all caught up there. Matt Ray just really worked all the way down from the line there and gave us a bunch of options. That was some good stuff, man. Much better than the percentages the AP tries to do when he's on here. Let's go to Sam Smith 2233, and Brent, we're gonna start with you. We can go around the room here. I want to go last though. Call your shot. How far does this baseball team go?
Oh, I mean, if they get out of this weekend and they can get out of I think they're built for a super regional. I think they're much better equipped to handle a super regional setup than they are a regional setup when you look at their depth of pitching. So, I'm going to call my shot and say Tennessee gets to a super regional. And then at that point, I think it's probably a crapshoot. But I think Tennessee will find a way to get out of the Knoxville region this week.
Grant, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that. The problem with the super regional is what they're going to Arkansas probably if they go to a super regional. I think Arkansas is like minus 700 to win its regional. Way bigger numbers than anybody else, and it wasn't even close. Almost double, I think, the closest odds to win the region. I think Arkansas, Eric, you were talking about the other night, were they the top team on the national championship odds in terms of winning the title?
They were I think they were like number. No, I think they were number one. You're right. Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway, but we just haven't seen Tennessee win a 3-game series since when? Late March, early April at best, I think. I think that Texas A&M series, early April, started that, whatever it was, to end the season, 5 straight, 6 out of 7 SEC series they dropped. I need to see them win a series, and obviously we haven't seen that in a while, so it feels like to me super regional until something changes, until they show otherwise, kind of feels like the ceiling at this point, or has it's kind of gone down the line here. It feels like the ceiling for this team.
Yeah, Arkansas is a plus 470, LSU plus 650, Vanderbilt plus 650, Texas plus 900, North Carolina plus 1,000, Tennessee is 6th best odds at plus 1,200. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. I'm going to, similar tune here, I'm going to have Tennessee go into a super regional. I think Tennessee is far and away the better team in the Knoxville regional. I think it's going to be challenged, especially some individual matchups. Cincinnati, putting pressure on Tennessee's pitching staff on the base pass. They're top 20 in the country in stolen bases. Who's going to be on the mound there? Wake Forest has got a pretty potent offense. Wake Forest also doesn't field the ball very well, so I think there's some intriguing storylines there. But overall, I think Tennessee will make its way out of the Knoxville regional. I do expect Fayetteville to be hosting Super, and Tennessee goes there. It's a place Tennessee's not had a lot of success with. First win in Fayetteville since I want to say 2015 when they won a game a couple weeks ago. They haven't won a series there in quite some time. I think Arkansas has won 11 of the last 12, but all that doesn't matter. It's going to be throw the record books out the window. Super regional play. They have struggled at home in supers. Having all that said, I mean, we've seen enough of a sample size so far. I'm not willing to say Tennessee's going to get past the supers right now. Wouldn't shock me at all, especially with some of the performances we saw in Hoover. Talent's there, but I'll have Tennessee bowing out in a super 4 right now. Matt, you want to call your shot? You going to just say go to Omaha and everybody will call you a hero?
No, I mean, they obviously have the talent to go to Omaha, and if you play the way that you did for those first 2 games in Hoover, you can go to Omaha. But like Grant said, we haven't seen them win a 3-game series in some time, and until they do, going on the road at Arkansas again is not going to be easy to do. So I'm with you guys on the super right now.
Again, postseason baseball is wild. Say Arkansas struggles and doesn't get out of the regional. I mean, Tennessee's got a home super, and then it's a completely different ball game. So things can happen.
You might end up playing Evansville. The crazy thing is they just were at Arkansas. How many days ago was that? That was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It feels like pretty recently, and they won the series opener. So that gives you kind of a different outlook on it because of what they showed the first time. Obviously, they lost the next 2 games, but still, if you can go, if you win a opener in super regional play, obviously that's a lot different than the opener of a weekend series in the regular season.
And you won it without Liam Doyle too, who's kind of been on a
Right.
2-game, hiccup here to end the, here lately. And
And
you hit the ball well all weekend, so that's something to think about. But you're right. I mean, Evansville last year was the 4 seed. They won their region. They came to Tennessee. Anything can happen. Let's go to Everett-Vol 96%. Go ahead.
Hey, but before we go, I'm going to add an additional mailbag question here, piggybacking off a little Sam Smith. I don't think it's in our list of questions. Are you surprised Tony Vitello's not tweaking that he may not tweak his pitching rotation and he may stick with the regular Friday, Saturday rotation with Doyle getting the start on Friday night and then Phillips being in the Saturday game? Are you surprised he's going to go that direction? Do you think he'll ultimately end up going that direction?
I mean, I feel like he will ultimately end up going in that direction because that's what he's done the past 2 years. Tennessee didn't have a Friday night guy last year, but Tennessee had a plan. It was Stamos Causey, it was Beam, and then it was Xander. Okay, that was their plan. In 2023, you had a 3-man rotation. 2022, you had a 4-man rotation, and that was the year where Beam and Chase Burns were true freshmen. And they started skipping some starts there towards the end to give them some rest, and you were able to start Blake Tidwell in that opener. So you had more options in 2022, but for the most part, Tony Vitello, Frank Anderson, they've stuck with kind of their plan: Friday night guy, Saturday night guy, Sunday guy, and they've kind of rolled with that. So I think that's ultimately what Tony will end up doing. I think that he has too much respect for this region, for Miami of Ohio, to as he put it the other day, over-strategize. He didn't say too cute, but kind of get too cute with it. I think he's got too much respect for the teams in the region to do that. If it were me, man, I would start Marcus Phillips on Friday because Miami of Ohio is not seeing anything. They won't see anything from Doyle that they wouldn't see from Phillips, right? I mean, it's velo, constant velo, pounding the zone, that type of pitching. Plus, you're setting Marcus Phillips up for the potential of a Cincinnati matchup on Saturday. Cincinnati runs all over the place, and Marcus Phillips has struggled this year in that regard. So if it were me, I'd flip him, especially considering Phillips has gone on Thursday, Doyle on Friday the past 2 weeks. So really, you just bump both those guys back a day, an extra day of rest. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. So I think Tony will end up sticking with what he's done all year long. Doyle setting the tone, Phillips, and then whoever. But if it were me, I would certainly flip those two because I think it makes just too much sense. And I don't think that's over strategizing. I think that's just game planning and putting your team in the best position to win, in my opinion. All right, we'll move on here. A basketball question to Everett-Vol 96. % chance that Sakai is playing for the basketball team next season.
Can I answer this without wearing Peter Millar? Do I have to go put on a polo with a golf course logo on it to do percentages?
You have to turn your hat around the right way.
3.7324 repeating. So,
no faith.
No, I mean, something's
Hater.
going to have to happen with the 5th year sooner rather than later. And we've been talking about that for weeks and nothing's happened. He's not arguing junior college. He doesn't have kind of the arguments that Alberto Zuna's made or Diego Pavia's made in the past, or I can't remember the Rutgers safety.
Jet Elad.
Jet Elad that got approved. So it's a different situation. I think he's trying to get ahead of it when they do rule a fifth year and pass that, kind of for everybody, I guess, going forward, that these guys from this last year deserve it as well. But it just feels different because he doesn't have that junior college year to argue. He had 4 straight years where he played a lot of basketball for Tennessee, and his eligibility's out, and that's the way people look at it. And until something happens with that fifth year, I think it's going to be a struggle for him to win anything, get granted anything. And even when that fifth year passes, I don't think it's a slam dunk that he gets his stuff cleared and gets a fifth year as well.
Yeah, I just don't have any faith on them getting anything done. I mean,
right.
You're sitting here and the SEC coaches were in Destin, and they're essentially publicly begging for the NCAA to make a ruling on the transfer portal date. Are you going to do one? You're going to do two? You're going to do it in January? You're going to do it in spring? Like, when are we going to know? I mean, it's June. Like, when are you going to know when the portal is going to be in effect? And so I think the concern that you have is just the inability right now to get anything done. The House settlement, whenever that happens, if it happens, is going to create just a landfall of lawsuits for everybody to sort through at this point. They're not anywhere on, I don't know how close they are to making a decision on a college football playoff format. It just feels like there's a backlog of things that just aren't getting done, which puts it really hard for me to see the fifth year thing bouncing up any priority chain, moving up anybody's list at this point. It feels like to me it's kind of down the list, and they're having a hard time working through their list right now.
All right, we'll move on here to 731 underscore VFL, B4L, excuse me. As things stand right now, what percentage do you give that Tennessee makes the switch to Adidas? Any more insights you guys can have on would be much appreciated. Again, a percentage question. Austin Price isn't here, but Brent Hubbs, let's tell the people what they want. Nike, Adidas, kind of what's going on there.
Well, I mean, I think that the ultimate thing is it comes down to, is this all about money, or is there something more involved there? If it's about money, then I think it's the percentages of them going to Adidas are high, because I think Adidas will put the best offer on the table. They put the best offer on the table financially 10 years ago, or whenever the date was that it was done there. Their bid was better than Nike's, and Dave Hart and the coaches, I think at Tennessee at that point felt like they needed to be a Nike school to get the juice going there. I don't think Nike is going to come back and counter with a deal equal to what Adidas puts on the table. I could be wrong, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. So if you're making this about money and money only, it seems to only make sense that it ultimately ends up being Adidas. But I think we're going to be late into the summer, middle of the summer anyway, before we get to the final deal on that. I think Adidas will come to the table with something here in the month of June. Nike's got 15 days or 14 days to counter that, and then you go from there. So we'll see where we are in a couple of weeks on that and what it looks like. But if it's about money, to me, this feels like it's Adidas.
I miss Darius Moore.
I was having this conversation with a friend the other day. Like, think about 10 years ago, what the emphasis on money is now compared to 10 years ago. I don't ever remember thinking in 2015 when the Adidas Nike stuff was getting sorted out that money was going to be a deciding factor in that situation. Obviously, it's a big deal, but just how much the emphasis now is on you better have every single penny that you can find because of just the atmosphere, the landscape of the college athletics right now, and how much more important the emphasis is on money, and that being the deciding factor in stuff like this.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's Tennessee's one of a handful of schools that their plan is to, if the House settlement goes through and all the scholarship numbers change, they're going to go full scholarships in all their sports. They're going to go the full allotment in baseball, softball, in the basketball world and everything else. Now, obviously, football was going to cut numbers down, but scholarship numbers are going to go up. And Tennessee's going to go full scholarship. I mean, they're publicly committed to doing that at this point, unless something dramatic changes. So, I mean, when you talk about adding, 50 more scholarships, I mean, that's a lot of money. And to your point, Grant, you're exactly right. Every penny right now feels like it's important in college athletics, whereas 10 years ago, it was about a bunch of people stuffing the coffers. Who had the biggest reserve? Remember the discussion with Tennessee forever with Dave Hart was they didn't have enough reserve, and he was always bothered by the fact they didn't have a reserve, and he was always trying to build up a reserve because Alabama had a big reserve, and all the other schools in the conference had this big reserve, and Tennessee didn't because they were giving the academic side a bunch of money. I mean, Danny White said on multiple occasions, "Hey, this is not about me, lining the bank account. I mean, we're going to spend everything we make. Our goal is to break even. If we're a $268 million budget, our expenses are going to be $268 million, or thereabouts. So this is not a, hey, let's try to bank a bunch of money and get rich or put a bunch of money, in the bank account and hold on to it. He's going to spend every dime he's got because he thinks it's going to make him more competitive. So that means he needs more dimes, right, Grant?
All of them.
All the dimes.
All the dimes.
All right. I missed Denarius Moore. Pretty good two-parter here. We're going to start with the second part. Let's go to Matt Ray. What recruit did Tennessee make up the most ground with this weekend?
I think I mentioned him earlier, probably in my opinion, Kamari Blair. I mean, Tennessee just offered him earlier this month, 4-star offensive tackle out of Kirkwood High School. And, to get him out here as quickly as they did is a big step in the right direction. He had a really good time. He told Austin that Tennessee had emerged as a contender. He's going to replace that Kentucky official visit, as I mentioned, with a Tennessee official visit. The Vols get the last shot there in the month of June. I think Ole Miss is probably the team that they're playing catch up to right now the most, but I think Tennessee put their best foot forward with him. A guy that we didn't talk to, but I just think looking at it from my point of view, you had to continue to make up some ground with Savion Hyder this weekend. But just getting him back, a visit that's been in the works for a few weeks now, but was kept quiet. He was able to get here on Friday, throughout the day on Saturday. The thing for me with that is he just didn't have to take this official visit, right? Or he didn't have to take this visit, right? His official visit process is starting in less than a week, and he shows up in Knoxville for an unofficial visit on Friday, stay throughout the day on Saturday. He'll be back at Tennessee in less than a month. So he didn't have to take that visit. So to me, that just shows that Tennessee is a school of high interest for him. So I think they made up a lot of ground there in April, and I think that probably continued to carry over this weekend.
First part of I'm Mr. Denarius Moore's question. This is a good one. If you could bring one thing back to recruiting from before 2007, pre-smartphone, widespread social media use, etc., what would it be, Brent Hubbs, and why?
Yeah, ask the old guy, right? It would be the lack of social media. I think, because it places greater value in what updates we were given. I miss the old school January where you just every Sunday afternoon starting at 1:00, you went and locked yourself in the office and you just started calling kids as they were leaving town and as they got home. And, your update was the only way people could get an update because nobody was putting anything out on social media. And I don't fault the kids in any way, shape, or form for how they do it now because they have the platform to do it. But that was a different deal because everybody was asking you, hey, what are you hearing on this? What are you hearing on this? And you were calling everybody you could call to try to get a vibe on something and get an update on a kid. It was a little different vibe, a little different feeling back in the olden days. So I do miss those January Sundays where you had 20 visitors in, on a cold January weekend, and you sit upstairs and work forever, and even back before then, back in the 90s, I'd go to the radio station and sit there and work until whatever hour at night you needed to. It was one day a week, but it was a cool deal because everybody's waiting on you to tell them something. It's a little different vibe now with guys having the ability to put all their stuff out on social media as they want.
I've got one, and I say this realizing I didn't do the heavy lifting on these days, but National Signing Day being a national holiday for college football enthusiasts, it was appointment stuff like 7 a.m. National Signing Day. You better be caffeinated. You better have a charged laptop. You better have a charged phone, and you're going to be there for the next 12 hours until the head coach has a press conference to talk about this class that he just signed and all the decisions that went down on National Signing Day. The viral stuff that would happen on signing day, all the videos, the props that kids would use, the parents' reaction, all the crazy stuff we saw. I mean, that was a national holiday. And I don't hate the portal. I'm fine with the portal. It's whatever. But that's taken away a lot of it. Obviously, social media, the stuff you're talking about, is taken away a lot of it. The multiple signing days, that's taken out of it. But just back in the day when it was a national holiday for college football enthusiasts. It was appointment stuff, sit down and enjoy the day because it was going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, those were the best days when you started calling and harassing a school secretary, and finally you just harassed them to the point they would just hold a phone up. They would transfer it to the auditorium, and they would just hold the phone up so you could hear what was going on because nobody was streaming anything. I think I've told this story before, but I mean, when Robert Meacham surprised everybody and committed and signed with Tennessee, I covered that one via instant messenger with Jeremy Crabtree, who was working for Rivals at the time. He was at Meacham's high school. I think that was Booker T. Washington. I want to say it's where he went. I may be wrong on that, in Oklahoma. And he was typing. I guess he had a phone, maybe probably an old slide phone or something like that, where he could text. And I had my instant messenger box popped up. And I mean, he was just stunned in disbelief when the kid committed and signed with Tennessee. And I mean, Robert Mitchell got booed in his gymnasium when he picked Tennessee over Oklahoma. I miss those. I miss those stories. Those were fun. And National Signing Day was totally different. Now it's, everything's just kind of strategically laid out, and you just wait till somebody puts it out, and then you go from there. You don't have to chase it down to see if somebody's done it yet or not. I mean, you had Julian Battle, who signed with NC State. Tennessee found a loophole because his mama hadn't signed the national letter, and Julian Battle ended up signing 2 national letters of intent on signing day, and he's the only one I know who's ever had 2 signings on signing day. The first one was just null and void because his mom never signed it, and Tennessee blocked that signature, talked him off of it, and got him to change his mind back to Tennessee late afternoon, and got his mom down in Florida to sign that. He was in San Francisco when he signed with NC State initially, and then decided he made a mistake, and Tennessee could overcome that mistake because his mom was not there to sign the papers, and he was not. I don't know why his mom had to sign because he was a junior college player, but for whatever reason, his parent had to sign the national letter at that point.
And nowadays, by 8:15
over.
on National Signing Day, Eastern time, it's Hayes in the bar, baby. You're done. I mean, I remember those first couple years with Heupel, the first year, I guess, that he did his signing day, and I was doing radio. I was hosting a radio show that morning, and we're just flying through it. And it got to about 8:15. I'm like, he's done. He's done. There's nobody else. It's like, oh, holy
finished.
crap.
Yeah.
Signing day now is. I mean, everybody commits after June official visit. So, like when Brent's talking about before, you're doing something in January, and then you've got a lead up into that signing period that comes shortly thereafter. Everybody's doing something now in June, July, August, and then you're not signing until December. So signing day now is like going to a ceremony for a couple that eloped 3 months later, but now they're coming back to have a ceremony for family and friends. I mean, that's what signing day has turned into.
It's a great analogy.
I miss landlines and a young Brent Hubbs trying to chase down Randy Moss, and Randy Moss having no time for a young Brent Hubbs.
I'm telling you that. I mean, those were exhausting. I was young, no kids, had just gotten married. Wasn't even married at the start of that, and those were totally different. I mean, I knew I was going to marry my wife because our second or third date, instead of going to dinner, we'd made a detour and went to the radio station, and it was either Mickey Allen or Buck Fitzgerald that had committed, and I interviewed him and put the story out on radio that night, and that was the date. There was no dinner because I had to get to the radio station to handle that guy's commitment, and it was just totally different. And it's not bad now. It's just it doesn't have near the drama that it had. Because Matt, you're right. I mean, when you take 5 official visits in the month of January or 4, and you go 4 straight weeks, nobody really knows what you're going to do. And then all of a sudden you're signing 72 hours later. Whereas now you're going to take official visits, make a commitment, and sign, 5 months later. It just has a total different feel to it now on signing day.
It's quite the flex, man. I took my wife to the radio station one time, though I took her over to the WIVK side and said, "Oh, look at all this. The stuff you grew up listening to. It's right here. It's the magic of radio. Look at all this."
My wife could have cared less that we were there, but she was patient enough to let me do it. And then she was agreeable to go out on a third date with me. I'm like, I better marry this one because I probably got no shot otherwise.
Hey,
I don't think my wife cared at all either. So.
Hubbard talked to my class in college one time. I distinctly remember him saying, sometimes you're going to be at dinner and you're going to have to take that phone call and it's not going to go well. And he could not have been more right. Sometimes you're going to have to handle something and it's not going to go well.
New Year's Eve weekend, we were in Gatlinburg and we were at Best Italian having dinner. We were up there in the cabin for the weekend and Ed Orgeron called me sitting at the table to tell me he was coming to Tennessee. And I literally, a waitress walked by and I grabbed a glorified paper towel, I guess is what it was. It was a napkin, and just grabbed her Sharpie pen, and I wrote all of the quotes down on that napkin from Orgeron, and we finished the piece of pizza we were eating. We boxed it up, and I went back to the cabin where we had a little Wi-Fi service. I got the story wrote and got it posted. By the time I got through posting it, my wife was asleep, and that was the end of our getaway at the cabin weekend in Gatlinburg. That one didn't go well. I also pulled over at the K's Ice Cream.
K's.
In Jefferson City.
Yeah.
Carson Newman, on my way home from the lake with jet ski, pulled in there and did Luke Stalker's commitment at that point. So back in the day, and it's still that way now. It's anytime, anywhere, but it did have a different vibe with some of those stuff back in those days. Now you grab your phone and you just throw it up there and you record it and you send the audio to one of you guys and y'all write it. That's how it works now.
Full circle. The story you just told was the story you were telling us in that class at UT in 2000, whatever.
The Luke Stalker one?
No, Orgeron. The Orgeron interrupted dinner.
Yeah, it did. Totally interrupted dinner. My wife just shook her head. I'm like, what are you going to do? That was wild because they had just hired. There had been no coaching search for Volquest. That was the first ever coaching search that Volquest had covered. Was the ouster of Philip Fulmer, the hiring of Lane Kiffin. And I knew Orgeron was coming because he had subscribed to Volquest in December. He was a subscriber. So I knew he was coming, and it was a matter of when is he going to tell everybody he's coming? When does he get approval to do that? And he got approval to do that New Year's Eve for whatever reason. Thanks, Lane. Appreciate you.
So many different thoughts right now. First and foremost, you're last couple of 4th of Julys, you're hanging out with the family at a barbecue or whatever, and boom, there's a surprise, transfer portal commitment. That's always fun. Secondly, K's Ice Cream, freaking goat. Missed that place. A lot of great memories. Third, and most importantly, Brent, I got to know, what was that AOL Instant Messenger handle? We got to know right now.
Oh, it was volquest@aol.com. It's the same email I got right now. It hasn't changed. Come on, you can't.
Mine was like my instant messenger was like a Braves kid, and like my phone number like 2232 or something.
Mine was Volquest. I didn't even know you could do anything any different. Are you kidding me?
It was the same AOL account that during the Butch Jones administration on a laptop that came out of Steve Jobs' garage was saying "You've got mail" every time Hubbard opened it.
That's exactly right.
Oh, great stuff! Great stuff.
Old
All right,
school or dumb school, one or the other.
We'll move on here. Can you talk about Danny White's current position heading into league meetings with the proposed state law that essentially voids the House settlement as it stands? This is clearly something Danny will need to manage carefully, and interested to hear your thoughts on how that might go. Additionally, from what you hear, do you anticipate any other states trying to follow suit in the short term?
Yeah, I think New Jersey's already followed suit. Oregon was there, and to some degree, even before Tennessee was. It just didn't get a lot of the notoriety that Tennessee has. Grant, for me, the biggest surprise through 2 days of the spring meetings in Destin, Florida, is this topic has not come up. I don't know that Greg Sankey's been asked about it. He's been asked about every other thing, and he's taken his shots at the Big 12 and the ACC. But I'm kind of dumbfounded that this has not been a topic of conversation in any press setting that Greg Sankey has done to this point. It might get there, by the end of the week, but typically when you get to the end of the week, it's about big check time. And all the hard topics are already discussed out. But it is, as of Wednesday when we record this, it has not come up, which is a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, and that's surprising. And when the whole Tennessee stuff went down, what was that, last week or however long ago that was, and people started talking, well, if you don't, is this, I can't remember, I'm confusing my topics. Is this related? This is basically if you don't follow suit, you could get kicked out. Like a league wants to sign a big thing, and if you don't follow suit, then you could get kicked out of leagues.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the SEC, let's be real. Tennessee has too much pride, and the SEC has too much pride to start kicking out member institutions, founding member institutions, to rework the conference, to remake the conference. It just means more conference, and nobody's more proud of itself than the SEC in multiple sports across the board. How much success they have, how much money they have, how much power they have. I just don't think it's going to get to that. I am surprised that they haven't discussed it at this point at spring meetings, but I don't think it's ever going to get to that point where anything has to change. I think there are going to be adjustments made by both parties on both sides to figure out some kind of agreement and get everything settled before any kind of drastic change has to be made, because you just can't make those kind of changes with this much pride on the line between the two parties.
So you're saying Sawani's not coming back to the league?
No.
I would
Georgia
not
Tech?
bank on it. Carson Newman, maybe.
Carson Newman, maybe. Watch out.
Might need to expand the stadium, though.
Watch out. All right, here we go. I Heart Vols. Do the UT coaches, football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, care about shoe and apparel deals? If so, do they have any input in the decision? And if so, how much? Matt Ray, how much does this influence in terms of recruiting? Because, I mean, I think the coaches want the prospects, and the prospects care about this, so I think the coaches certainly care about this.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I do think
It's certainly not everything anymore. Yes,
it's not everything anymore. I mean, I don't think Oklahoma landed David Stone, 5-star defensive lineman a couple of years ago because they were a Jordan brand school. I don't think we're going to see North Carolina landing kids because they're a Jordan brand school versus a Nike school versus an Adidas school. But I do think it matters. I mean, comfort and look good, feel good, play good. That's the old motto, right? But yeah, I can tell you this much. When I was playing ball, Eric, when you were playing ball, you could go out there in Rydell, you could go out there in Nike. It didn't matter what you were going out there in. You're the same player at the end of the day. But you do want to look good. You do want to feel good. So, I mean, I think that matters to an extent. But in today's day and age of the NIL and getting money, I think it's a pretty easy bridge to cross from the standpoint of, hey, this is what we do as a Nike school. This is what we do as an Adidas school. And this is how things change for you. And, I mean, if I'm taking a new job and they want me to wear, Ralph Lauren polo over Peter Millar, and they're going to pay me $15,000 more a year to do that, I'm probably going to go with the Ralph Lauren polo if the job lines up to what I want. So it doesn't. I just don't think it has a huge impact on recruiting. And I think in today's day and age, with guys being more expressive, saying things and not really holding back, I think we'll hear about it if it does. And to this point, that's just not even a talking point anymore to me from the apparel stuff. You don't do all these photo shoots that you used to do, so you're not getting in and out of all this gear and doing all these things. You're doing one photo shoot on official visits. It's to me, it's just not that much compared to what it used to be maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I still never heard of a kid choosing one school over another because of a brand.
Here's where we are with it in 2025. If you look up Nate Ament on Instagram, 2 of his top 3 pinned posts are him in a photo shoot, and at the bottom it says something like "Say hello to the future of Reebok basketball." He has a Reebok deal in place. I assume he's not a huge Reebok fan or didn't grow up obsessed with Reebok or anything like that. He probably has Nikes and Jordans like every other kid growing up. But I'm sure Reebok came to him with the most money and said, "We're going to make you the face of our basketball program." And he signed up for that because money talks. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's money. I mean, Nike and Jordan Brand are they set the standard in shoe wear and apparel and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like we were talking about earlier, it's money, money, money. I mean, Dalton Connect came here and he was a one and done, and he starred in generational talent and all that stuff. And as soon as he left here, he had a Jordan Brand deal in place to go through, the draft process. And he's a Jordan athlete now. It wouldn't matter if he's wearing Nike or Adidas or Reebok or New Balance or whatever when he's at Tennessee. Like, you want to go to a place where you're going to be a star, it doesn't matter what you're going to wear. If you can play well, and you're going to get your own deal on the side anyway, regardless of what it is, any brand you choose. I mean, that's what we live in. That's the day and the age that we're in, where most money talks, and you can get your own deal.
The best football player in the world is an Adidas athlete.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is an Adidas athlete. To me, he's the best football player in the world. So again, it's all about making that decision that's right for you.
All right, we'll go to David Keith fan. Has Hood arrived on campus yet? Does he pass the eye test? What are your expectations for him in 2025? Brent, he's gonna play. I think he's gonna add versatility to that secondary. He's gonna play for sure. But have you laid eyes on him yet? Does he pass the eye test?
Yeah, he just arrived over the weekend. I think he's kind of an interesting, body type. He's kind of a yoked up guy. He doesn't have short arms, but I mean, he's probably not as long as some of those freshman DBs are, but obviously he plays effective. He plays physical. What's my expectation for him is he's going to be a factor at corner, particularly until Jamad McCoy gets back 100%. I think he could be a factor at star behind Boo Carter. He's a quality depth piece that Tennessee needs. And I think the biggest thing it allows them to do is it allows them to keep Caleb Beasley at safety. Yeah. And that's probably not talked about enough, but where they're at safety after the loss of Christian Charles and Jacoby Thomas to the transfer portal, Beasley needs to stay at safety because he's going to be at worst the third safety in the rotation, if not a starter. So the ability to have Beasley stay at safety and not have to worry about the star position and cross-train there, particularly in fall camp, I think is a big deal. So he is on campus, got here this week, and I think Tennessee, likes what they got out of a guy that you got late in the cycle.
If the SEC, Big Ten, and others decide to disband from the NCAA and start their own thing, what would have to happen? Is there a payment that they'd have to make similar to leaving a conference? Are there other protocols that they would have to undertake to do this? I'm just wondering about this process.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think there's any payment because I don't think you're paying to be a member of the NCAA. Now, are you just leaving in football? If you're just leaving in football, then the NCAA would still be a factor for you in college basketball. But remember, the NCAA doesn't run the college football playoffs, so they're not handling the money from that standpoint. So I don't know that there's any. Hey, it's we got to have an exit strategy and we've got to have X amount of dollars to get out or anything like that. I don't know for sure the answer to that question though.
All right, which quarterback do you think has the highest ceiling that's on the roster right now of the three? Matt Ray, good question for you. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a good question. I'm going to go to George McIntyre.
That's what I thought too. I mean, it's a good question, and I went to the third quarterback in mine right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's new to the system. He played with a really unique setup at Brentwood, multiple offensive coordinators over multiple years, but really, really flashed at different times. He's got a lot of growth to do physically. He can add so much to his frame. So what does the velocity on his football, how much does his game continue to evolve as he does that? I think when you're talking ceiling long term, it's a guy like that, measurables, arm talent, those types of things. Haven't seen, really anything of Joey Aguilar other than just watching tapes on YouTube and whatnot on social media. I saw Jake Merklinger play one of the best football games that I've seen a high school football player play at Cedar Grove in the semifinals, his last high school football game before making his way to Tennessee. Did that in front of Joey Halsley, lost his top wide receiver in the first quarter. He got ejected. And Jake just played an incredible game against a team that went on to win the state championship that year in a really tough classification in Georgia. So all three guys have plenty of upside, plenty of potential. But I think when you're just talking high ceiling long term, I'll go with George McIntyre.
All right, this is a really good question. I'll be intrigued to hear everybody's answers, plus Matt, because he's like a year younger than me. Vol fan mailman, what is your earliest memory of Tennessee football?
Grant, go ahead.
Early 90s, I went to my dad taking me to games. I think there was an LSU game early 90s is kind of the first one I remember going to, attending. I remember sitting in section Y8 and hearing Bobby Denton say there was a marker on the field and thinking he meant an actual marker because I was about 4 years old probably at the time. First vivid memory is probably like 95 Alabama game. But I remember, going to games at Tennessee more than, other stuff. And I mean, I remember riding into Knoxville and hearing Gus and Haywood and being so young that I thought, there's no way these guys sound like this. They're actually just making these voices up. Like these are characters that they're playing. No, they were not characters they were playing. That was them. But I think there was a 92, 93, something like that LSU home game maybe in September. I think that's the first one that I actually kind of remember.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I remember, I would say you're talking about watching a replay in the question here. So I remember there was trying to think of the name of it right off the top of my head. Big Orange Expedition, maybe narrated by John Ward. I remember my grandpa got it for me at a gas station. It was a VHS tape, and I watched all of that. It was on Tennessee's run through the 1998 season, perfect season. I remember that very well. I've probably watched that countless times. But as far as in the stadium, I believe the first game that I went to was 2000 against Arkansas, and I think Tennessee put up a pretty crooked number that day. So I remember going to that game with my dad. I remember we sat up and really high, kind of up in the nosebleeds. I believe Travis Henry had a big day that day. If I'm remembering correctly, Travis Henry, Travis Stevens. I think I was probably only about 7 at the time.
They scored 30. They scored 35 in the first quarter. And
okay, yeah, I believe that's the game.
They scored 62 in the game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe that's so. Inside the stadium, that's my first memory. Watching that videotape with my grandpa would probably be my earliest memory that I can recall outside of that.
My earliest memory of attending a Tennessee game, I believe, and I went to confirm the date right here. I believe it was October 26, 2002. It was a third Saturday in October, and I remember this because Alabama came to Knoxville and snapped a 7-game win streak for the Volunteers. And I remember it because it was towards the end of the game. Maybe we were walking out or whatever. And I don't know if it was cold that night, but I remember I was young. I had a puffy, jacket on, probably a starter brand. And there was like a fight, like two, Alabama fan, Tennessee fan fighting in the stands. And I was like, trying to go over there, trying to run over there and see it. And my dad reached out and grabbed the hood of that jacket and yanked me back. And I went flying through the air. My dad caught me. So that's why I remember that game, because it was a Tennessee loss, but I remember my dad yanking me back for trying to go and see that fight. I don't remember. Go ahead. What'd you say?
I was going to say, boys, Hubs is on the ledge. This is bad. Hubs is on the ledge.
Let's hear from you. What was your earliest memory?
Man, my dad took me to my first game in 1982. It was Tennessee-Memphis State. It was cold, November. He wanted to leave. He didn't really want to go, but I begged him to take me. So that was in 82. We stayed for the whole game in the freezing cold. Why? I have no idea, because Tennessee was in control of the game. The first time I really started following them. And I remember Willie Gault and certain plays and certain players. I mean, I met Reggie White and different things like that. But the 85 team was the team where it really just captured, and that's the 40th anniversary of that team this year. So that's the team. For anybody that's in the around 50 years of age, I think that's the memory that stands out. It was Tony Robinson, the wristbands around the ankles. I remember being so upset when he got hurt in the Alabama game in 85. The season was thought to be lost, but guys like Chris White and Dale Jones, and Charles Davis, and all these guys that played on that team led by Ken Donahue on defense. That was the team that kind of captured every young kid's, hearts. And from that point on there, that one season created a lot of diehard Tennessee fans today that are my age, because that was the team that, boy, man, you were following everything about them. I was in the 6th grade at that point, and man, you didn't miss anything about that team at 85, because this town was buzzing about that 85 team, because they had not been like that. And they were going to win the SEC, go to the Sugar Bowl, then obviously they beat Miami. So it was that team that really stirred all the emotions of Tennessee for me and for a lot of other people my age.
Matt, it was 63-20. I told you wrong. Not 62.
63-20. Wow.
Matt, who was the first Tennessee quarterback you remember, as a kid, watching and knowing that that's the quarterback of Tennessee?
Casey Clausen.
I was going to say Casey Clausen's the answer for me too. I do not. I know it's bad.
Y'all gotta stop.
I mean, listen, I didn't get to. I played rec league football, and we played in a league that the closest game to home was 45 minutes away at the time. So everything was a lot further. We went to Meigs County, we went to Inglewood and McMinn County. We went to Rogers Creek. We went to all these different places. So I listened to a lot of the games on the radio. So, that I remember that game vividly because in the 2000 game, because I didn't get to go to a lot of games because we were always playing on Saturdays. But I remember always it just the radio, it just always sounded so much better hearing what Casey Clausen did. It always seemed like he hit somebody streaking down the seam or something like that. But I remember lining that up, and I remember. I guess there's another early memory. What year did they play Maryland in the Peach Bowl, Hubs?
Oh, that was those back-to-back debacles in the Peach Bowl.
Yeah, I remember we went to that was a game we got to go to because we went to Atlanta and
EJ Henderson was the linebacker from Maryland who was an All-American, and Tennessee had no desire to be there. They no-showed for that deal. I think they broke curfew every night. The last place they wanted to be was at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, and that was bad.
I think they scored early. I don't remember if Casey Clausen ran one in or not, but I remember my dad being so mad when we left because I think Casey struck up the band or something in that game. Like I think he scored and kind of struck up the band, and then, like you said, Tennessee no-showed from that point forward. And I just remember my dad being really irritated about it. So that's always an experience that I lean back to. Those were too early, and I probably didn't get to go to a game after that Peach Bowl for probably 6-7 years. So
no. YouTube's a beautiful thing. You can go back and watch a lot of Tennessee clips with Peyton and T. Martin, of course, that 98 season and all that. Yeah, YouTube's awesome. All right, we're like 52 minutes into this, so let's do a couple more rapid fire. River, I'm sorry, we're not going to get to them all, but we'll do some rapid fire here. JBird24, will Amari Jefferson contribute this year at all?
I think he has to. To what degree, we'll find out. But I think he has to. I just think he has to find a way to contribute.
Grant Ramey, given 5 chances, could you make contact with a 79-mile-per-hour fastball from Carlin Pickens?
No, and not only that, I would injure myself in the process without even making contact. I mean, that's no chance. Are you kidding?
Yeah, no chance. I would not go in the box. I'd be terrified. Absolutely no chance.
That Vol guy giving us way too much credit, thinking it's even a possibility.
5 chances? You kidding me? Give me 20 chances. I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna foul one off. No chance.
No.
All right, Matt Ray. Who are the names to know this weekend for this weekend's recruiting event?
It's early, but obviously we reported yesterday Cooper Witten will be in. Jace Johnson, 2027 quarterback, will be in this weekend. Chase Johnson, another standout guy out of Georgia, will be in this weekend. Tennessee's expecting around 80 recruits on campus this weekend, so we'll kind of see where things get finalized as we get closer to that. But it's got potential to be a really big weekend of 2027s and 2028s.
How many running backs do you think Tennessee will take in this class?
I think if they could get Savion Hyder and Amari Lattimore, they'd absolutely take both. Got to get Amari Lattimore to campus. We'll see. There's his dad told Steve Wiltfong that they were coming up this weekend. Amari told me on Thursday of last week that they were coming up last weekend. So we'll see if he makes it in this weekend. Tennessee needs to get him here, but I think they would take both of those guys without doubt. It would be tough to do. We'll kind of see where things go through June if they land one or the other, and then where they go from that point moving forward.
What were you saying about Noah Rogers there?
Yeah, no kidding.
If we win a regional, what is the hypothetical for us to host a super? Arkansas loses. Tennessee wins a regional. Arkansas loses the regional. Super regional will be in Knoxville. It's as simple as that. Bud Fox, this is good for Brent. Do you think this is the most uncertainty we've experienced in wide receiver heading into the season since 2007? He mentions that 2007 group was led by Lucas Taylor, Josh Briscoe, Austin Rogers, and it turned out to be a pretty good one.
Yeah, I looked this up. I'm glad we got to this question. So Lucas Taylor had 101 yards receiving in 2006. He had 1,000 yards receiving in 2007. Rogers went from 69 to 624. Briscoe went from 53 to 557. So to Bud's point, yeah, I think this is the most inexperienced group since then. This group is more inexperienced than that group in terms of production. The one thing you got to keep in mind about the 2007 team, too, that was a senior in Eric Ainge who had started the 2004 season. We all know what happened in 2005, and he was the reclamation project in 2006 under David Cutcliffe. So you were bringing an experienced quarterback back with some young receivers who had played the year before. They had gotten some work the year before, so their production wasn't there. They probably had more experience than this group had, though, when you look at how many snaps they had played the previous year.
Yeah, I think 35 touchdowns for Ainge that year, his final year here in Knoxville, pretty good year.
Yep.
Do you think without binding contract, it's still worth being overly excited or disappointed with our high school recruiting? Paying a lot of money for unproven production and potential departures after 1 year seems a little risky proposition as opposed to dominating the winter portal. Matt Ray, what do you think?
Sorry, Eric Kane, I wasn't paying much attention right there. Yeah, no, I don't. I'm reading your question here. I don't think it's, I still think you got to pay attention to high school recruiting, right? I mean, when you look at what Tennessee has in some of these guys this year, and obviously there's going to be bumps in the road along the way, but you've still got guys that you recruited out of high school that are going to play a lot of meaningful football for you this year. Ricky Gibson's a 3-year guy that's going to start at corner this year. He's in his 3rd year. He's going to be a 2-year starter coming in. Brent mentioned Caleb Beasley. He's a guy you recruited out of high school. Arion Carter, Jeremiah Thielander, both guys that are going to play a ton of football for you this year. We've got David Sanders, who's certainly going to factor in. Peyton Lewis is going to factor in heavily to the running back rotation. So, I understand not getting too high, too low. There's definitely a lot of twists in the roads right now. You have to pay attention to high school recruiting, and it's still, I think, if you went and asked Josh Heupel or anybody on this coaching staff right now, it's as important as it's ever been. Obviously there's still a lot of uncertainty with things in the transfer portal and getting different things ironed out. And we'll kind of see where those go moving forward. And I'm sure it's exhausting to those guys having to recruit their roster day in and day out. But from the standpoint of high school recruiting, you still have to put an emphasis on that. Tennessee's doing just that, and every school across the country is as well.
Nobody's playing with 85 transfers.
Right. It's not an either or. It's not an either or. Like, you can dominate the winter portal, but you still got to be effective in high school recruiting. It's not just pick a lane and stay in it. You better execute well in both lanes.
Yep.
Look at Tennessee baseball. Look at look at the recruits and the freshmen on campus right now. Look at the class that is coming in. I mean, for a staff that has been elite in recruiting, this is their best work. I mean, the staff coming in, and we'll see who they lose to the draft because they'll lose a couple. Just incredible. So certainly you can't live and die. It's not either or, as Grant said. It's certainly both. I want to do 2 more here, both recruiting, so we'll get Matt's thoughts. River, let's skip down to ETSU Vol, if you don't mind. Sorry about that. ETSU Vol, who are the possible 2027 quarterback targets?
Jace Johnson will be on campus this weekend. He's a guy Tennessee's had up several times. They evaluated in camp last year. I would imagine he'll be back at camp this year. They evaluated Malachi Ziegler, I believe is his name, earlier in the spring out of Louisiana, extended an offer to him as well. There's a 2027 quarterback out of Arizona that Joey Halsley's checked in on a few times. I will probably butcher the name. I want to say it's Blake Reskoff, but that last name spelling is out there for me, so I'm not sure exactly how that is. Those are probably 3 names that stand out right away. I think Tennessee still got plenty more evaluating to do there, though.
And then we'll end there with CJS Vols, a couple of them here, all recruiting. Matt, which flip targets do you think Tennessee has the best chance to if they make it for an official visit?
Yeah, I've got to start with Hezekiah Harris. I think Tennessee put their best foot forward with him this weekend. As I've said, he's got a really strong relationship with Coach Chop, but you've got to get him back at the end of June. He's going to Auburn this weekend. You can bet they're going to try to shut that down this weekend. Coach Chop is battling there every single day. There's a strong relationship there. There's a lot of appeal to him around Knoxville, a good comfort level for him around Knoxville. So I think for me right now, he's probably the guy that you have the best shot at heading into official visits.
Is there any smoke with elite athlete Joey O and Moa right there?
Man, when you talk about Joey O'Brien, that's a dude. That's a guy that makes plays. As it stands, Tennessee, is still scheduled to get him to campus for an official visit. To my knowledge, at this point, and you gotta just take your shot during that. They got him here earlier in the spring. He had a good time. They're definitely not the lead team, but who is the lead team in that one? I mean, Penn State's pulling on him really hard to stay up in that direction. Oregon made a big move there earlier in the year, earlier in the spring. So we'll kind of see where things go in that recruitment. But he's an elite athlete that can do a lot of things, really dynamic. And then South Samoa is a guy that Tennessee's talked to. Dialogue's been really good there. They've recruited him hard. You just have to get him out here to campus in June and kind of see where that goes. But he's another guy that is a national recruitment, has a lot of schools paying attention. So work to be done there going into the month of June.
Any chance we get DBs back on campus for OVs, or have they canceled their Tennessee visit? Gibson, Edmonds, Smith. Got them listed right there.
Yeah, I think Tennessee gets signed Gibson back to campus in June. I think they've got a good shot of doing that. I haven't heard much buzz about getting Jordan Edmonds back to campus. We'll kind of see what happens. Same thing with Jordan Smith. I think he committed early. I think he wanted to lock his spot in at Georgia as a safety in that class. And at this point, I'm not expecting him to take any visits, at least here in the summer.
Why doesn't Sharman get more opportunities? I thought he pitched well as of late. Well, I can promise you if Tennessee plays a fourth game in regionals, he's going to be getting a lot of opportunities. Same if Tennessee would have won that game and played in the championship game on Sunday in Hoover. Sharman, I think he's been pretty good here lately. His role was from midweek, kind of taking over that role, kind of stretching out a little bit. He's gotten a couple of chances to come in left on left specialist. Did not, I want to say it was it Arkansas? Yeah, when he came in Arkansas, just didn't, his last time in that role just didn't pan out very well. He's also behind in the lefty specialist. He's behind Loy. He's behind Arvidsson. He's behind some of these guys. So there were just other options for him. But in regional play, embrace the chaos. If Tennessee, really for game 3, it's all hands on deck as well. But especially game 4, he's a guy that could probably start there for you if you needed. And at a special request, we're going to go back to ETSU Vol to finish off this podcast. The second part of this question: favorite fried chicken, Grant Ramey.
Listen, I was never much of a fried chicken connoisseur in a past life, but Gus has converted me. I don't know what Gus has got going on. No free ads, but here's a free ad. But it converted me. That maybe that makes me a noob or an uneducated fried chicken eater, but that's the place.
Brent Hubbs, who's got the best fried chicken?
Gus's. Yeah, Gus's fried chicken is the best fried chicken that you can get. Consistently good. I'm a fan. That's a go-to there. Here's the secret. Here's the secret to Gus's. Nobody really dives into either. They have fantastic catfish as well. If you don't want to do fried chicken, they have fried catfish there that is absolutely terrific. So there's a little secret they don't put on the old menu, but they do fried catfish there as well. But I'm a big Gus's guy.
Yeah, the sides there are phenomenal as well, so it's a great time. Really good questions. Appreciate you guys for sending those in this week as we do the mailbag questions on the Mailbag Podcast every single Thursday right here at Volquest.com. Come check us out. A lot going on right now. June is coming up. Official visits are going to be here. Loads of information to get into. Tennessee begins regional play in the Knoxville Regional this weekend. We'll see how they fare. If you win, you'll potentially go into Arkansas next week for Super, so we'll talk about that. Football workouts beginning this week, summer school beginning this week. A lot going on. Transfer portal for baseball is going to open next week, so much happening right now, even though it's the summer months, and you can stay dialed in and updated throughout the entire process at Volquest.com. Come join us on the General's Quarters, $1 for 7 days, $1 for your first week. Come hang out with us over at Volquest.com. Big shout out to River Bailey stepping in and producing this show for us today. Big thank you to River, Matt Ray, Grant Ramey, Brent Hubbs. I'm Eric Kane. We'll talk to you guys again on Tuesday on the Volquest Podcast.